is up, everybody? We are alive with no scuff today and rocking the new haircut. Feeling good, feeling cute. Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney over here in Asia, the magical land of Asia. And this is, of course, a live video going to you live. There will be a fast facts on this. I'm getting it edited right now. But that one really is going to be more zoomed in on what I think is the most critical issue. Today on this version, the live, the difference is we're going through almost all of the relevant parts of the complaint. So we're going to go a little bit longer today. We're going to have some deep analysis today, breaking down the complaint, walking through some things that I think her attorney got right and some things she got wrong. And today I may make nobody happy because I'm going to be fair, right? So there are things where Mizkif absolutely is still behind. He's still going to have trouble. He's still, well, whiny and very hypocritical. We're going to hit on that pretty much immediately. But then we've got one place particularly where Emiru screwed up. And as always, that's how I do it on the Legal Mindset. We call it fairly. You guys can be the judge one way or another on what you think in terms of the parties subjectively. That's not what I'm about. I'm about the law. So we're going to get into the law today from your favorite lawman, right? And I hope everybody's doing well out there. Mudang's doing great. Her tiara should be delivered very soon. So all the tiara squad that chipped in for that should be here very soon for Mudang. So I'm just waiting on that package, right? But it's been ordered. It's been ordered. The princess tiara is coming. It's not a manatee. It's Mudang, right? Let's move Mudang up here. This is Mudang, a very lovable hippo, and that is a piece of Thai culture which was shared with the world, right? If you don't like the Mudang memes, I don't know. I mean, they're a happy thing in the world. Speaking of plushies, also, I did a little teaser here on my X because the cabbages are indeed coming. The little teaser, the cabbage plushie, a little backside of the cabbage, that is coming on March 20th. So on March 20th, you'll have the cabbage plushie and that'll be there. So get ready for that. That's going to be absolutely fantastic. And I'll have some more, teasers, some more promotional shots. And then we're going to do a giveaway soon as well. So you're going to have a lot of stuff coming for the cabbages, right? So the pre-order is going to open up on the 20th. So that's when things are going to get there. But yes, a little cabbage booty never hurt nobody. Green Ninja for 5 Legal Mindset memberships. Thank you so much. Yes. If you receive those gift memberships on YouTube, please make sure to say thank you. And also, shout out to everybody who's over there on Kick. I appreciate all you guys too. Coughing Bird, K139, Babanuelos, and Danielle. Good to see you over there watching on Kick. And we've also got our little local squad. We've got JP and Danielle and some others on local. So good to see everybody on no matter what community you're tuning in on today. Michael Turner, 9498, says the ancient Egyptians would eat hippo-shaped cakes. I mean, hippos were once debated to be imported to the U.S. for meat. They were going to be imported to Louisiana, apparently to help clean up all the, aquatic vegetation and stuff like that. They were going to bring them over and they were going to hunt them for meat. We are very glad that did not happen because hippos kill more people than crocodiles and alligators combined. Hippos are indeed very territorial and will rip you to shreds. So it is possible that one day Mudang could rip someone to shreds, but that is not there yet. Also, someone said, can't wait to see Ramsey's sentence. I will have I'm going to do a little bit of video on some of what may happen in prison and his kind of prison that he'll be going to. That's going to come out probably in the next week or so, maybe. That'll be out there. But we're all waiting what the final sentencing is. Obviously, 3 years with hard labor, sex offender classification. That's all very good. And the maximum fine they could give him, that's all great. That's all really great. And I always was saying 2 to 5 years is what I thought. I know a lot of other clickbait AI channels were out there saying 30 years or 40 years or 120 years, but that's what I thought. And I think with labor, that's definitely fair, right? You're getting him to actually give back to Korea, the country he mocked, the country he made fun of. He was, simping for North Korea and doing all this LARPing, etc. Obviously, none of that played out. He could have just apologized and it would have gone away, which is true for a lot of these things. The Talented X says, guess what? Cabbage butt. Guess who? Hanky Poo. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh.
Oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. Oh, hell no.
Always love those. Oran Tonlin 5254 member for 13 months. Awesome. Good to see you. Thank you. Very based for being around that here. There's a good question. I'm new here. Why are people so contentious with legal mindset? But appreciate the coverage. They all use me and they like quote me or they'll go off of me and they'll take one position or another, but they hate it because I'm coming in and telling them the law. And they really don't like that. They don't being told the law. And every time someone comes out there and tells them the law, they get uppity, they get angry, right? Because that's just the way it is. And they don't like objective truth. They like to spin it subjectively. They like to paint it that I'm taking some angle or whatever. And sometimes I have my opinions and stuff like that, but I state them as my opinions, not stating them as the law. Like, for example, let's get into the PP. Let's whip out our PP here today, right? We do have a PP, of course, right? When I talk about Mizkif, and I get into this, right? And obviously today, this is Mizkif versus Emiru. We're talking about her defense, right? And we talk about our plaintiff here, Mizkif, right? Mizkif is not a sympathetic figure. And I don't think that's a controversial statement, right? I don't think that's something that, should rock anybody's boat. Like Mizkif, and we're going to play the crying clip because if you haven't seen the crying clip, you got to see the crying clip. But I'm also going to play something he said no less than a week or two before. So this is a guy who goes out there and lately has been on kind of a drama streak of pointing the finger at everybody else, trying to draw attention away from himself, just pointing at, look at what they're doing, and defaming other people. He said stuff, and I'm going to play a clip where he defames somebody. In fact, it's pretty clear. It's pretty obvious. And he does it without blatting an eye, without crying a tear, without any sort of, saying, well, this and that, no, or debate or whatever else. No, he just defames somebody. So I think it's a little bit of his own medicine, even if we get into the statement that Emiru made, even if that statement was wrong and she shouldn't have said it, there's one thing in particular that Emiru should not have said. And that's the one thing that she effed up on. And I'm not sure if she went to her woke friends or she definitely didn't go to a lawyer that wouldn't have said something about it. If she went to a lawyer, the lawyer would have said, don't say that. And she said it. So either she ignored a lawyer or she just went to her friends or something else like that. I'm not sure, but she did say one thing that gets her in more hot water than comparatively Asmongold. So that's what we're going to go into today. King Lucia for 5 legal mindset memberships. Thank you so much. Yes. Okay, we got that. Sebastian Mueller, member for 27 months, says, hey, Andrew, how's your day been? It's actually been really good. Got a lot of content out. Guys, check out my Valve video. If you haven't checked out that one on loot boxes, that could affect all the gacha games, all games with RNG drops, even games with cosmetics like Fortnite or Roblox or whatever, Hearthstone, all these other online games and games dynamics. That lawsuit is actually massive. It's not as sexy because, well, maybe Gabe Newell isn't sexy to everybody, but it could impact a massive amount of gaming. So check that one out. Also, the Hassan video was absolutely great. So if you guys want to check that one out, Mizkif is going to get a plea, but he won't. Well, I insanity plea. Well, he might already be insane. But I think in this lawsuit, the best outcome for Mizkif, the thing that would be like a W for him, is to get a settlement, right? I think that ultimately is the best outcome he could ever hope for, is if these people pay him at some point to go away. Now, who's going to pay him, we're going to talk about today, because I think some people are more likely to pay than others. In short, Mizkif a B. Yes. That's indisputable. Sid Crow, Sid 67, Crow 73 for 20 legal mindset memberships. Thank you.
Are you guys enjoying the stream today?
can say thank you if you got those. And also thank you if you got them from Sebastian Mueller, 7013. So thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. Extremely based. Objection to Mizkif being a B. And none of this takes away from that or his behavior. And none of what I say today takes away from or excuses Mizkif. So at times in which I'm going to say, and it's going to come up, this is something Mizkif's attorney has a point on, and this is a point where Mizkif may, on this point, prevail, right? It's possible, right? That doesn't make him any less of a weirdo, right? So let's get into the clip. I want to show you the Mizkif crying clip because maybe you haven't seen it. Somebody asked, why is Emiru being sued? For defamation. For defamation. So Asmongold and Emiru are being sued for defamation. And then we've got OTK and Mythic in this, and they have other claims against them like breach of contract, etc. Right? So they've got other claims, the OTK and Mythic. But in terms of Asmon and Emiru, and let's face it, most people are caring more about the content creators than the agencies, right? Because the agency, that's some agency stuff that may end up getting arbitrated. So it may end up being secret and being off the table and split off. So the OTK and the Mythic stuff may get arbitrated. But Asmon and Emiru, people care about the defamation case, right? That they definitely care about the defamation case. Okay, so here's the latest clip of Mizkif crying. Let's play this.
And she waits fucking 4.5 months to stall this shit out so no one cares anymore. And her fucking response is that. Like, are you kidding me? And no one cares. No one cares. Like, no one wants to listen. It's so unfair. They go at my fucking throat for fucking cheese clips and say I'm an abuser. And that's her response. Her response is literally that it's her emotional fucking version of it. Are you kidding me?
So there's Mizkif's tears. God, that was the fakest performance I have seen in a while. That is some of the fakest tears that I have seen ever. That was absolutely cringe. By the way, he mentioned drag this out for 4 months, bro. This is a court case. I don't know if anybody told you or you spoke to a lawyer, but court cases can take years, bruh. They can take years. This could take 2, 3, 4, 5 years if you really drag it out. Who knows, right? If it goes to trial, this could take 2 or 3 years easily. You think 4 months? What you think court cases are resolved in 4 months? What are you smoking, bro? Like, he's definitely not talking to a lawyer. That's all kind of kayfabes. It's all bullshit, right? Now, we'll get into the emotional truth argument because that's an interesting argument that's made by Emiru. And that's a squishy argument. We're going to get into that one, especially at this point in time, right? But I just want to point out that this same guy who's crying, right? The same guy who's crying, right? Look what he was saying. Look what he was saying just a little while ago about poor Chibi Reviews. And mind you, Chibi Reviews just came off of a suicide attempt after losing his girlfriend and his entire friend group. Right. And look what he had to say about him, like in the midst of this, as this guy is at the lowest point in his life. Look what he had to say.
Hey, by the way, another Tectone friend, by the way, another Tectone friend. It's crazy. What the dude, what has been happening this past like month with just all these pedophile weirdos?
There you go. Defamation, right? So, by the way, he defames Tectone there too, because he's calling Tectone a PDF. Tectone's never been accused of being a PDF. Now, you can argue about the Pikachu stuff. That's whatever. We've already gone through that. You can formulate whatever opinion you want to have about Tectone based on that. That's already out there, right? We presented that the injunction and a lot of the problems with that. People can take that how they want, but he wasn't charged with that, with being a PDF, right? So that's defamation on Tectone and defamation on Chibi, right? So he's out there at the lowest point in people's life, defaming them. And then he wants to come out and cry about defamation. I mean, and that's the same thing with Hassan. It's just right there, like hand in hand with Hassan, where they go out and they defame people and they do it wildly. They've been doing it over and over again. And then when somebody says something about them, right? When somebody says something about them, all of a sudden they're crying defamation. And in this case, Mizkif is suing, right? And Hassan, by the way, suing and once that, threatening to sue if you didn't see the video over his own words promoting drone warfare, right? Saying, hey, go out, buy Shaheed drones. They're only $10,000, bros. All my terrorist bros. Let's go to drones, right? And then getting mad when someone called him out on that, right? It's absolute nuts hypocrisy, and nothing about what we review today makes them any less of hypocrites, right? Isamax for £5 says, if the standard is actual malice, shouldn't it only matter what Emiru thought is true? If she thought it was essay reasonable, then she's clear. I'm going to get into this very specifically because we need to understand what that actually means. And this is a good point we're going to get on today, is that they're both public figures, but it really only matters at the person the statement is made to. So Mizkif is the one that matters. He's a public figure. So once again, so is Emiru. That's irrelevant legally. But Mizkif is a public figure. So he's got to prove what's called actual malice. So saying that was said knowing it was untrue. And that's going to be a very difficult hill to mount. And you've got to do that by clear and convincing evidence, which is a higher evidentiary standard. So it's not just the normal civil standard of preponderance of the evidence. It's clear and convincing evidence, the higher standard. So that's going to be a very tall hill to roll the ball up on, even though there's one thing that Emiru said that gives it a chance, right? And that's the only thing she said. Looking through the entire transcript and everything, it's really the only thing that puts her at real deeper risk, right? And it's also something that I think that in general, you should never say. You should never say about anybody unless you're ready to go 10 toes down on it, right? Jen79 says, it's a butthurt ego. That's right. Ryobi said, I'll say it again. Mizkif in that clip is him having the yearning for the cabbages like RKI, aka Johnny in the final trial, blaming Bong Bong. Yeah, and it's absolute BS. You want people to have sympathy for you, but you're acting, you're demon time, right? You're acting out, you're acting like a kind of petulant child. Nobody is going to have any sympathy for you there. If you had the Carfax, the evidence, pull it all out, bring it into court, submit it all. Let's play this out. Let's see what happens. But so far, nothing that Mizkif has shown has conclusively broken the threshold of, okay, that's for sure going to go to trial. And at trial, he's going to win on a defamation charge. There's one thing that tosses it up in the air, though, and we'll talk about that. Okay. So let's get into that. One thing I wanted to bring up too, and this is getting into Emiru and what she said, was I think that she's kind of been ready for a lawsuit to get dragged out. So when we look at her and kind of her position in this, I think that she knew that when she was making statements and on her coming out stream, when she was talking about what was happening, I think she knew that this might be coming. And here's the clip.
I would not be surprised if he tries to sue me for the stream that I did today and for coming out about him. Not because he thinks that he would win, but for PR reasons, like a slap lawsuit. It'd be interesting if that happened, and I wouldn't be opposed to people finding out more of the truth and things that I didn't even talk about today, and what else he's been lying about. And I'm sure there's also plenty of things that even I don't know about.
So one thing I want to point out there is Emiru seems to understand that she might be involved in litigation, and she also understands it might go to trial. So at this point in the case, right? So let's go over the basics here. We'll whip out the PP so everyone's on the same page, right? Once again, we have the plaintiffs, with the plaintiff is Mizkif. You had Emiru right there, right? She said she's prepared to go forward with a lawsuit. You have Asmongold, and we'll talk about how Emiru's defense affects or doesn't affect Asmongold as well. But it's defamation, once again, against Asmon, OTK, Mythic, Emiru. And almost all the evidence we have involves statements on Mizkif and Emiru's former relationship. Now, many of these are reacts. So either a react to Emiru's stream or a react to stuff that Mizkif said himself, right? So many of the comments and omissions were made by Mizkif himself. So when we go through the actual evidence and what's been submitted to the court, a lot of it is Mizkif just telling on himself. And you can see that the lawyers, both for Asmongold and Emiru, both bring that up. They both bring up the fact that Mizkif pretty much snitched on himself. So most of what he claims is defamatory is actually just stuff he said. Most of it. Genji Shim 5014 says, thanks for all your hard work covering these topics. We appreciate you more than you imagine. Thank you very much. Shout out to Mood Egg in the back, looking fresh. She's always looking fresh and so cute. But thank you for that. Appreciate you guys. And I'm happy to be here going through all this craziness with you guys, with the based legal mindset, the best members out there. Okay, so now we're at the stage where Asmongold and Emiru filed a motion to dismiss. So let's explain. Here's the motion to dismiss. Here's what was filed. Here's the case number in the West District of Texas. It's in federal court, so it's not in Texas court. Now, he did that specifically. Let's be clear. Mizkif tried to get this in federal court because he wanted to take advantage of some of the federal procedural rules and get away from some of the protections that Texas had. If he had filed in Texas in state court, they would have an advantage, Emiru and Asmongold would have an even bigger advantage based on some procedure that Texas has. So that's why he tried to go for federal court. But what we need to understand is this is a motion to dismiss. This is not a motion on the merits of the case as in summary judgment, and it's not like a trial. So all the evidence isn't out there. All the discovery isn't out there. In fact, Mizkif in his filings says that the court should ignore the evidence that's been submitted by Asmongold and Emiru. Let me say that one more time. Mizkif is arguing through his attorney that all of the evidence that's been submitted by Asmongold and Emiru should be ignored, right? So Mizkif is actually the one who's trying to bury and hide the evidence and trying to say, hey, only look at what I submitted and don't look at what anybody else submitted. That's not really how it usually works. So that one is a very interesting argument. So Asmongold and Emiru have filed what's called the 12B6 motion, which is failure to state a claim. This is a pre-trial motion. It's one of the first motions you're going to make in a trial, and it's one of the first things the judge is going to have to decide on. But it only looks at the legal sufficiency of plaintiff's claims, of Mizkif's claims. So it doesn't actually say, okay, well, let's go to the facts. Let's go whether the facts are true or not. You actually have to interpret, the judge has to interpret the facts in favor of Mizkif. Now, this doesn't mean that if Mizkif makes a legal conclusion like, hey, Asmongold is guilty of defamation and Emiru is guilty of defamation, that the judge has to say, oh, you're right. No. And it doesn't mean that just because he recites the elements like, oh, they said something, I didn't like that something, which whatever, or that something hurt me or hurt my reputation, and I had damages, or I should have damages, right? That they have to take those as fact. No, right? That's just stating the elements is basic. But if he gives actual facts, they have to presume, okay, we're going to take that those facts that he pled are true for the moment, right? And then when we go to later stages, like summary judgment or trial, then we can balance that out based on discovery, based on further evidence, based on further submittals. So understand this is something that the advantage is with what's called the non-moving party. So in this case, Asmongold and Emiru are submitting the motions, the moving party, and Mizkif, even though he's the plaintiff, is the non-moving party. So the facts, the motion is presumptively in the favor of the non-moving party. But the big thing here that tells me that Mizkif is worried about this is because Mizkif wants to amend his complaint to add facts, because both Emiru's lawyer and Asmongold's lawyer called him out on the fact that his complaint, what he submitted, really didn't have any facts. He kind of just said, hey, they defamed me, and then kind of went from there. So it was not very fact heavy, which is not good for him, right? Okay, so just to show you guys what I'm going to rely on here, and this is some just a little bit. Let's see. Let's just go, and I'll share this entire screen with you guys. We've got. Let's see if that worked out. There you go. Perfect. All right, we've got the complaint here, the motion to dismiss here that Emiru filed, right? And you see over here in the case file, we're going to be going through this. Now, the important parts of this are, first, the asking for it to be dismissed. So that's the most important part. This is what we're going to read through. So we're going to read page 10 through 17 for sure, right? Then they asked for it to be dismissed because it has no allegations of defamatory statements, meaning essentially he didn't include enough facts. He didn't include enough statements saying like what exactly was defamatory. He didn't do that. So now he's trying to amend his complaint to put those in there because he screwed up. He didn't do that. And then they say, hey, they shouldn't be given leave to amend their complaint. And then they should, also in the alternative, they should be compelled to specifically identify the falsity and harm of each alleged defamatory statement. So this is something I actually do agree with. I think that he did submit like a laughable complaint just because the facts were so threadbare. He had almost nothing in there, just essentially said, hey, they defamed me, but didn't really give specific statements and why. I think they should make him do that, right? I think that is something they should do, right? Quang Lee, QK3NV says, Mizkif and his Temu lawyer must be high when they decided to ask the court to only look at this evidence and throw out Emiru and Asman's evidence. It's crazy. And the fact that he thinks that stuff isn't going to come out and isn't going to be relevant, and he thinks he's going to win at trial, it's very strange. It's a very strange argument, and it's very strange with his behavior, right? Okay, so we have that, and then we also have this transcript. Now, I'm going to pull from you guys. I've already pulled out the statements that are the most damning for Emiru. So in all of this transcript, and I've looked at the transcript, I've listened to the video, many of you have listened to the video, there's really only 3 times that Emiru says one thing, right? One word. Well, it's actually 2 words, but one phrase that gets Emiru in hot water. The majority of what she said here, the vast majority of what she said here is non-defamatory. And when we look at what Asman was reacting to, almost all non-defamatory, right? All statements that you can't even argue as defamatory because he said it, right? Because it's describing a situation that happened. And that's just the description of the scenario. And Mizkif, by his own admission, agreed with the description of the scenario. But there's 3 areas where Emiru screwed up. So let's get into that, and then we'll get into the main argument here. So the area where she screwed up was by talking about SA. She should have never said the word SA, right? And that's where Emiru messed up. That's the one thing she did that was a mess up, and a clear mess up, right? So in Texas, it's defamation per se. That means kind of automatically defamation if you accuse someone of a crime or if you have an imputation of serious sexual misconduct. So accusing someone of SA, you see the word right here, and not being an SA, right? There's nothing wrong with essays as an ESSAY, right? I like those are nice, right? We're talking about sexual assault, right? Talking about sexual assault. That's a felony, right? So it's both a crime and it's a serious sex thing. So it hits both categories, right? Both categories. So, and just so you understand, the crime of sexual assault requires contact or, some penetration, right? So if you're saying that somebody did that, and by the way, we're going to get demonetized now because I said it, right? So please smash the like button for me getting demonetized over reading legal names and stuff like that, right? So smash the like button before the demonetization police get us. I have to cover Mudang's ears. She shouldn't have to hear about this bad behavior. Also, thank you for everybody who supported me today. Appreciate all you guys. We should be able to talk about law on the internet, but YouTube likes to demonetize. So the crime requires contact. Now, originally, I thought Emiru was going to actually take the position that what happened to her was SA, and said, hey, I think that meets the definition. Or maybe there's something else we haven't heard of, right, that she's going to bring up later that does meet that definition. But she changed her argument. She did change the argument, or at least the framing of it, from people's understanding in her motion to dismiss, right, which we'll get into. But here's the statements that she made, right? So I'm going to read these statements. Actually, I'll play the first one so you guys hear it, right? So these are all from this video. So if you go to the transcript and you pull up, if you pull up this video, which is in the top, you can just copy paste it. You'll get this. So you hear her say it here. I'm going to play this.
Today, I'm finally going to be opening up about the psychological and domestic abuse, stalking and harassment, sexual assault, and threats of blackmail that Mizkif has done towards me, and some of these issues which are still ongoing. For the entirety of this year, I have attempted to separate myself from him and not talk about him at all, and not talk about this issue and just not make it a public thing. I always tried my best to keep this to myself. But like I said, I feel like it's gone to the point, which I'll explain later, that
hold on, let me fast. I think I got it here. Hold on.
Today, I'm finally going to be opening up about the psychological and domestic abuse,
here we go,
stalking and harassment, sexual assault,
boom,
and threats of blackmail.
So she said it there. Now, and she also said it in the context of talking about other crimes, right? So that's not good. And I'm just being real here, right? This is not because I like Mizkif or anything else like that. I'm just saying because she talked about it in the context of other criminal activity. There is an argument, right, that she was talking about the criminal act, right? And because that's defamation per se, even though, and this is something I understand, even though people out there use that just colloquially and say, oh, I was sexually assaulted, and they may not understand the legal definition, and they may not, some people may be so dumb they don't even know that's a crime, and whatever, right? But I can't speak to Emiru. I don't know how, whether she knew that was a crime beforehand, although presumptively, I imagine most people do know, right? That's the danger in saying that. And that's something that people have gotten really comfortable saying on the internet, right? Same with calling people things like Mizkif, right? Like Mizkif calling people a PDF. People have gotten real comfortable with that, but that's defamation, right? You should never be saying that word. And if she had never said that word, there would be zero grounds for Mizkif. Mizkif would have no argument. There'd be nothing. It'd be done, right? But because she said that, Mizkif can focus on that specific thing and push this. And remember, this is a motion to dismiss. So at this point, the facts are presumed in favor of Mizkif, right? Do we see where we're going on this one? See where we're going? So she said it there, and then she said it 2 other times. I'll just read those. I've got them pulled up here. And you guys can go to the video and find this. The first one here was at 20 minutes and 30 seconds, 59:33. She said, but because of the past incidents during like other fights, and times where I've tried to separate myself from him, past incidents during those times of him manipulating me into staying close with him and giving him more chances, sexually assaulting me, the abuse, just him generally not being a very nice person. If she had said just abuse, she could get away with that. If she had said sexually violating, if she could said making me feel sexually uncomfortable, if she had said doing things sexually with me I didn't want to do, right? Those would have all been fine. But because of that specific phrasing, that's what Mizkif's lawyers are going to target. And they're going to go for that. 100%. 100%. Right? And then last saying, I'm so grateful for how things are. It was very difficult, but I'm very proud of myself for making the choices that I did to end up where I am now. And that's my story of dealing with abuse, psychological domestic abuse, sexual assault, and stalking, and being threatened on if you know I ever talked about it. Right? So those are the 3 times she says it. And like I said, that's her mistake. And that's me once again being very fair about this case, as I always have been. Now, this allegedly comes from this incident, right? So this incident here, which Mizkif stated himself, saying we cuddled for about 30 minutes and started to kiss. She said she was okay with this on her stream, and I started to advance to the next stage because I thought that's what she wanted. She yelped, and I immediately sprung up and was scared if I did anything wrong or did wrong in general. I got scared and left the house. I apologize if that made Abby uncomfortable for me not saying sorry, and I wish I could say sorry back. So that's what Mizkif admitted, right? And then you've got You've got the story which comes up over here again. So this is from Emiru's defense. So what I will do with this one is let's actually go to the main document and let's read through this. So let's get into Emiru's actual defense and the defense document, and we'll go through that and the arguments, and we'll give all of her side, because this part about emotional story, or that's her emotional truth, right? That's only one part of a two-part argument. So let's give it the whole deal. So here we go into the actual document. And we're going to skip all the background. We know who these people are. We know they're streamers. We know that Emiru had a past that involved harassment and other things. So this goes into the statements that Mizkif made on a stream of his own. So they bring up in their motion to dismiss that Mizkif made a bunch of statements about himself and pretty much told on himself and brought up his own behavior, which was bad and arguably abusive. So the lawyers argue, Mizkif responded with a stream of his own. For more than 30 minutes, Mizkif complained about Emiru, criticized her, insulted her, and encouraged his followers to do the same. He was rude, offensive, and cruel to his former partner. A true and correct copy of the entire live stream is attached. The court's convenience, a transcript is attached as Exhibit 5. So we had the transcript. Yet shockingly, amongst the crude and insults, the insults and crude comments, Mizkif made a few surprising admissions. So here's the admissions. She brushed over in her live stream that I threw water bottles or my phone near her, but that wasn't during fights. I want to make that very clear. It would be me throwing my phone on my bed when I brushed my teeth. She did tell me she got a bruise from it and I stopped. Well, it's like, bro, how do you get a bruise from something if you're not hit by it? That doesn't make sense to me. So I know he's like self-admitting that he was throwing his phone and throwing water bottles, but how did she get a bruise? That doesn't really make sense. Also, Tank Rat coming with a big 50 legal mindset membership.
Are you guys enjoying the stream today?
Thank you so much, Base Tank Rat. Glad you're over there dodging all of the chaos in the Middle East. If you received a gift rat, a gift membership, a gift rat, we're going to call them gift rats, a gift rat from Tank Rat to join the BLM, please say thank you and appreciate that. We have a great chat. We have a great BLM. And we just had a member stream the other day talking about Hassan, some other topics, Valve, and we went through a big anime review and did an AMA. So we'll have another one this month. I try to do about 2 every single month. So if you got one of those, welcome to the BLM. Okay, next. He says, in regards to being controlling, and this is once again Mizkif's own words, I told her many things. I told her to dress older, to stop wearing pajamas, to stop talking about stalkers and schizos as a whole, to stop talking about past relationships. And yes, I didn't want her to travel without me. I also said I didn't want her to hang out with specific people. I know I was controlling and that I should have just ended the effing relationship. Okay, I've got a swear jar here today. Okay. I'm sorry. But I was so confused as a person, and I'm sorry I didn't. I'm sorry things got to this point, man. The last 9 months of this relationship, things got extremely effing toxic. Every month went by the last year, and our fights started to get louder. We were breaking up with each other almost weekly. Fights were getting more aggressive, and shouting began to increase. I was not perfect, and I reflect on those situations, poor taste of myself. I'm ashamed that situations got worse, but Emmy was also violent. This is the famous quote. She would throw clothes or plushies at me. Once again, the plushie attack, right? You're going to be plushie attack. I could spoil the back of the cabbage, right? Yeah, little cabbage booty there for you guys. Punched holes in the walls or slammed doors in aggression. And so he's equating a thrown plushie with punching a hole in the wall or slamming a door and saying that's totally equal, right? I one time did say I was going to kill myself during an argument. And then going over here, this is the cuddle and kiss one, which we've already read. Then saying, I realized over the years of the relationship, over the years of 2 relationships now online, that I'm a horrible boyfriend. And I have a lot of work on for myself. That's not said right, but okay. I have things that will be leaking over the next few days of other people and other things. Once again, this is why people do not have sympathy for Mizkif, because Mizkif is crying, "Oh, woe is me," when he literally says in his own statement, I have things that will be leaking of other people. So when you're over there in the glass house throwing rocks, people aren't going to cry for you very much, right? It's hilarious. It's hilarious. Had a fun day watching 2 drones and a ballistic get taken out. That's actually kind of based, but stay safe, my brother. Stay safe. All right. So he goes, I have a lot of messages that I have that I'm going to expose as time goes on, because I do believe that this is going to go effing buck wild. But I want to make it very clear when it comes to Emiru, when she says that I was getting ready to go after her and I was going to use her rabbits against her, that was never the plan. My plan was for myself. My plan for myself was very simple. If Emmy were to say anything about me, I would say something back, right? That's it. I never said I had a plan in my life to go after her or do anything. It was, if she said anything, I would say something as well. And that's completely understandable. Can I clarify what, if anything, was said to her team on TwitchCon? I said that if she goes after me, then I will go nuclear. And that is exactly what I said. And that is what is going to happen, because you can't mess with me anymore. I don't have anything to lose. I'm sorry, I don't. Go after me all you want. I have nothing to lose. Last statement. I don't like that she was portraying that it was just me who was at fault. It was a toxic relationship, and that's what was said. So once again, all those statements. So after these live streams, defendant Asmongold posted a series of live streams on his own, and we've gone over the Asmongold motion to dismiss. So Asmongold was reviewing both what Emiru said and what Mizkif said and reacting to that. Yet just days after admitting to the world that he was abusive, controlling, and toxic, Mizkif filed a claim against Emiru, among other claims. Mizkif now claims that the behavior he admitted to and embraced is actually false, and Emiru was defaming him by speaking the truth. Mizkif is attempting the very smear campaign that he promised on his live stream. He has nothing to lose, and like so many men before him, is trying to attempt to use the court system to intimidate Emiru in a sense. I don't like this argument. I'm honest, guys. I am very honest, and having read a lot, I don't like her throwing that in there. I don't think it matters that Mizkif is a man, and I don't think she should have put that in there. It's my personal opinion, right? That's my lawyer side of this, right? Trying to do this. Now, mind you, the one thing that Mizkif also has against him is this county, the pool that they're going to be pulling from, definitely leans left, right? So if they end up pulling a jury on this, it's definitely going to be a left-leaning jury, right? But anyways, and you know, to me, once again, there are abusive partners in relationships with both genders, you know. Okay, let me go. That is his nuclear option. He has been consistently harassing Emiru online since filing of this lawsuit while mobilizing his fan base to attack her online. He has openly stated that his goal is to influence the court of public opinion, not the court of law. This case is a sham intended to silence the woman bringing his misconduct to light. So they go and ask for the dismissal there. Okay. And say it doesn't state a valid claim for defamation. It intentionally and strategically quotes individual words or phrases from the live stream in order to distort her statements, deriving the court of the full context of her words as is required on a claim of defamation, which is true. You do need to look at the entire context. Further, the live stream plainly represents Emiru's emotional truth. Here's the controversial part, which is protected and not subject to the claim of defamation. Alternatively, the court should require the plaintiffs to specifically identify and articulate the statements by Emiru that are supposedly defamatory. This I do agree with. He should have to come out and say, this is defamatory and here's why, and pick out all the statements, and not just say, oh yeah, her entire stream is defamatory, without being able to say, okay, no, what exactly did she say? Same thing with Asmongold. He tried to go after Asmongold by saying his whole stream is defamatory. That doesn't work. You can't do that. Right? You've got to come in and say, no, this thing you said very specifically is defamatory, right? Appreciate that. Also, yeah, thank you. Gremlin saying thank you for the membership, guys. Appreciate that. I'm glad you love the videos, guys. If you love the videos, give it a like. We got 1,600 of you guys in here. Appreciate all of you. Also, thank you to all the guys over there on Locals. Appreciate, see Veggie Han, see through metal. Appreciate you guys. If you have to cover Mudang's ears, put money in the swear jar. Okay, that's very fair. That's very fair. I'll put a little money in the swear jar for Mudang's ears. All right. So let's continue with this. The amended complaint must be dismissed as to Mizkif. The Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 12b-6, that's the one I explained to you guys, is a failure to state a claim upon which relief can be granted. So survive a motion to dismiss, a complaint must contain sufficient factual matter. And that's the problem for Mizkif, right? That's the problem with Mizkif. He doesn't have sufficient factual matter. He should have put more facts in there. A claim has facial plausibility when the plaintiff pleads factual content that allows the court to draw a reasonable inference. A plaintiff must provide enough factual allegations to draw a reasonable inference. The complaint must either have direct allegations or permit properly drawn inferences to support every material point. Moreover, the plaintiff's claim must contain more than labels and conclusions in a formulaic recitation of the elements. That's pretty much what the original complaint was, which is why I laughed at it so hard, because it really didn't have a lot of facts. So saying that pretty much, okay, there weren't enough facts in here. Let's go down to this next section. Mizkif intentionally omits and misrepresents the context of Emiru's statements. In order to prevail on his claims of defamation, Mizkif must state direct allegations articulating the exact nature of statements at issue, how they were false, and why they are capable of defamatory meaning. However, the First Amendment complaint, what he submitted originally, is little more than labels and conclusions, hastily thrown together without explanation and logic. I think this is a fantastic definition of it, because to me, when we read through that first complaint, it was the most half-ass thing that was thrown together like in a second, right? It was something that was not thought carefully or had supporting evidence or had the quotes that are blocked out to make it very clear for the court. It was just conclusion after conclusion after conclusion. Paragraphs 18 through 20 identify a handful of statements by Emiru during her October 25th, 2025 live stream that are purportedly defamatory. However, Mizkif intentionally omits to inform the court of the fact that Emiru's live stream was nearly 90 minutes long. Mizkif selectively quoted single words or fragments out of a 90-minute live stream in order to dramatize and manipulate the actual content of the live stream. Texas law is clear that the court must evaluate the entire statement in order to determine whether defamation has occurred. In making its initial determination of whether a publication is capable of defamatory meaning, we examine its gist. That is, we construe the publication as a whole in light of the surrounding circumstances, based on how a person of ordinary intelligence would perceive it. This is the kind of the reasonable person standard. Just another way of saying the reasonable person standard. And they say right here, it depends on a reasonable person's perception of the entirety of the publication, not on individual statements. So while today I am going to focus on those statements, on the specific things she said, particularly the clips about SA, understand obviously the judge has to take it in light of everything she's saying, right? I'm only pointing those out because those are the weakest parts of the argument. And as a fair legal assessor, I have to tell you where the strengths and the weaknesses are, right? So let's continue. Even a false statement is not defamatory if the context of the statement discloses that's an opinion. So this is the crux of the argument regarding the statement about SA. You have to understand that with that statement, which is the worst thing that Emiru said, the argument from Emiru's lawyers and Emiru's standpoint is that was her opinion, and not her stating a legal conclusion or saying this is SA as in the crime. That's their position. And they have to take that position, right, in order to survive this motion to dismiss, right? Or sorry, in order to get this motion to dismiss granted. It's a very tough position, right? Because they want this motion to dismiss to be granted. They want this to go away, but they've got to have the judge say, no, this is clearly an opinion, and not her stating it as a fact, right? Patrick S90 says, if it does get dismissed, he's going to have a crash out live stream and leak, say some insane stuff that are going to be sued. And people were asking in the chat, can Asman and Emiru countersue? I don't know what everything Mizkif has said and what he said. I know there's other people other than Asman and other than Emiru that he has 100% defamed that could sue him. We looked at Chibi, right? He definitely defamed Chibi right there, just straight up, right? Once again, while the man was at the lowest point in his life, kicking him while he's down. There's other people that can sue him for defamation for sure, right? And if he did a crash out stream, I can imagine that he might, and he was really breaking down, he might say some defamatory stuff. It's very possible. Atlantic 770 for 10 euros, 10 Euro. Einfach mal Gruß aus Deutschland. Only greetings from Deutschland to all Legal Mindset fans. Vielen Dank. Hope you're doing over there. I'll prost with my water to all my German-speaking friends. Hope you guys are doing well. I have to get some good German food lately. There's a really good German beer house here on Sukhumvit that I really like. Although we're past Oktoberfest, German beer is always great. So thank you. Feeling down for that. Let's keep moving. Let's keep going. So even when a statement is verified as false, so meaning even if you say something that's not true, because remember, truth is an absolute defense. It does not give rise to liability if the entire context in which it was made discloses that it's merely opinion masquerading as fact. So let me pause here for a second. So if Emiru, because she said it was SA, if she stood 10 toes on that, if she stuck with her guns and said, I believe this is actually SA and I was SA, then there wouldn't be a question here because, well, then it would be the question of truth versus truth, or this is her statement that this was SA, right? And that's the asserted truth, right? So if it met the Texas definition, if there was contact that constituted SA, right? And she stood on that, or if she, for example, filed a criminal complaint or had an injunction or something against him where she could show, no, this is why I'm saying because I had an injunction or I had this criminal complaint, then we wouldn't even be here, right? We wouldn't even have to have the discussion, right? But they have to argue that, okay, it's a false statement because it doesn't meet that legal definition, which is defamation per se, right? So that's why they have to go into this argument. The first amended complaint must be dismissed because Mizkif completely fails to provide context of Emiru's statements. Of the litany of supposedly defamatory statements, Mizkif only includes one single full sentence quote, bro, this is trash. And this is why he's trying to amend his complaint, because he's been called out on this, that he really didn't have specific statements. He only had one. The remaining statements alleged in the first complaint are chopped and edited to the point where quotes have no meaning. Bro, this is the story of the internet, by the way. This is the story of the internet clips, right? Chopped and edited to the point where quotes have no meaning. I like that. Mizkif claims in paragraph 20 that Mizkif was screaming at her due to her cat. The bizarre statement is complete quote from the First Amendment complaint. That is the entire subparagraph, word for word. This strange claim is made with no context and no explanation. The court is left to guess due to her cat. What does due to her cat mean? What does cat mean? What does cat mean, right? Is it Schrodinger's cat? Like, is cat a metaphor? Is cat something else? Like, what is cat? Right? Is a cat fine too? Who knows? Determining whether a statement is defamatory is a question of whether a reasonable person of ordinary intelligence would perceive it. Yet Mizkif provides no information by which such a reasonable person could interpret such a vague and confusing claim about the cat, right? Due to her cat. Yes. What does it mean? I think there's a lot of Germans in chat. There's a lot of Germans. Similarly, Miss Riendo claims that it was defamatory when Shunk said that at a party she felt that Mizkif was following her, monitoring her, and watching her, and later made eye contact with her and said, ooh, right? Well, that's her POV and that's her story, right? So she's just recounting that. Again, Mizkif strings together specific words picked out of Emiru's live stream to make an implication that Emiru said something defamatory. It does not provide the full quote. Regardless, Mizkif's claims in the subparagraph make no sense. If what Emiru's statement was false, which it is not, as admitted by Mizkif himself, how is a statement that someone followed her around the room, made contact, and said, ooh, a statement capable of defamatory meaning? It's not. It's not. And this is the thing that I think Mizkif misunderstands. Mizkif thinks that anything bad you say about somebody else is defamation. It's not. It has to hurt your reputation. So how does following someone around, making eye contact and saying, ooh, hurts your reputation? Not really, right? Okay, you did that. Maybe it's a little bit weird, but it's not going to make or break your reputation. Mizkif does a good enough job of destroying Mizkif's own reputation, right? So that's something that Mizkif does a good job of doing on his own, right? And making his own statements that destroy his own reputation. Yeah, what reputation? Yes, precisely. What damage could that possibly cause to Mizkif? Which, once again, not the real name, whatever. No reasonable person of ordinary intelligence would ever believe that statement to be capable of defamatory meaning. On paragraph 20, Mizkif complains that Emiru stated that she was receiving harassment and hatred from him and his community while he was the whole time secretly begging for me to take him behind the scenes. Well, that probably happened. Yet Mizkif never articulates why Emiru's statements were false and why they defamed him. Yeah, how is that false to state that you're being harassed? I mean, whenever any communities are fighting online, you're going to get harassment. I get harassment just for covering the law, right? Not even getting deep into the drama and lore, and I get harassment, right? That happens. It's online. It's the internet. Embarrassment for being exposed does not mean the legal elements of a defamation claim. Bro, this quote is fire. I like this one. Embarrassment for being exposed does not mean the legal elements of defamation. And this is the majority of what Mizkif is arguing. The majority of what he's arguing is because he was exposed. And there's no basis for it, right? The majority of it is just him being big mad that she told a story about him. The vast majority of what he submitted and the vast majority of what he's arguing, and almost the entirety of what he's arguing against Asmongold, because he's really just mad that Asmongold covered it, right? That's what he's mad about. And Asmongold didn't run to his, defense like, oh, my lady Mizkif, I'm sorry you were damaged by the plushie queen. Let me defend your honor, Mizkif. I mean, that's what he's really mad about if you really drill down to it. In other incidents, Mizkif intentionally omits critical portions of Emiru's statements that demonstrate her truth. For example, Mizkif claims that Emiru stated that Mizkif's plan was to claim I killed animals and killed my own rabbits. Yet the full quote reveals that Emiru was repeating statements made by others. Multiple people have told me that his plan was that I kill animals, that I've killed my own rabbits since I had several of my rabbits passed away over the course of 3 years when I lived with him. He conveniently ignores and misrepresents the full quote to pretend it was something that Emiru created, when in reality, she clearly stated it was something that was told to her by others. Mizkif claims that Emiru defamed him by stating that his alleged behavior or act towards him or something similar were allegedly done to someone else. Setting aside the fact the sentence is nonsensical and confusing, I'm confused what the hell this means. That his behaviors towards her were done by someone else? What? It misstates Emiru's actual words. She actually stated, I was informed by 3 separate people, one of whom was present for said incident, that he had done something similar to someone that he had done to me and to someone in LA at the end of September. So the fact that apparently Mizkif has other victims is what she was saying. And she was informed of this. That's not defamatory to say that I heard a story that XYZ, right? As long as you're not throwing in there, and this is the important part, and the part where, once again, you need to be careful with defamation, as long as you're not accusing someone of a crime. And that's why I always say, keep the crimes out your mouth. And I really do wonder, going back to Emiru, did she really have a lawyer review her initial statement? Or did she just write it down or consult with some of her roommates or non-lawyers or somebody else when she wrote that statement? Because you need to not mention crimes. Just not mention them when you're going over the story. Unless you're damn sure you're going to stick by your guns and you're going to go all the way with that, right? So Mizkif simply does not and cannot back up his claims by examining Emiru's entire statement. For 90 minutes, Emiru bared her soul in a deeply emotional and vulnerable live stream laying out her story. By removing the context, the gist of her statements, the court is not afforded the opportunity to hear Emiru's own words and the emotional truth she conveyed. So here we're getting into this, right? Mizkif also intentionally omits the portions of Emiru's live stream that validate her statements, presumably because he knows that they undermine his entire case. For example, Mizkif claims that Emiru defamed him by stating that Mizkif made statements in connection with the 2024 incident in which Mizkif became extremely angry and aggressive because Emiru's stream was more popular than his. That's the tanking incident, right? Where he's mad about her tanking, right? And messages with Mizkif in which Mizkif repeatedly berates and belittles her because of his jealousy over her popularity. Once again, Mizkif strategically cherry picks words from Emiru's live stream, inserts his own implications and analysis of her words, and then neglects to even mention that Emiru proved her statements right there in the same live stream. Emiru's 90-minute live stream was longer than some movies released in theaters. That is fun. That is true. Yet Mizkif attempts to narrow it down to a handful of words. Mizkif also neglects to inform the court that many of Emiru's statements were validated as true just a few hours later in Mizkif's own live stream. For example, Mizkif complains that Emiru stated that a slam door broke and that he said he would destroy furniture, throw things, destroy walls, bang on the door and scream at her, that he would scream at her while she was asleep, and that he was physically aggressive. Yet Mizkif actually admitted this fact in his live stream. Fights were getting more aggressive and shouting increased. I punched holes in the wall and slammed doors and aggression. So he admitted those. So this part of it is all bunk. It's all trash, right? He said that the relationship was toxic and he was a horrible boyfriend. It's abundantly clear from his own statements that Emiru's portrayal of him was entirely accurate. Another example on paragraph 20, where Mizkif says that Emiru stated that Mizkif indirectly threatened her and approached other people about a smear campaign against her and to join with him in assistance. Plaintiffs alleged that Emiru stated that Mizkif threatened one of her employees and told him he will destroy her if she spoke about him. Again, Mizkif admitted to this in his stream, saying that he was going to expose her and go. Sorry, Mudang. Hold on. Gotta cover Mudang's ears and go fucking buck wild. All right, well, put one in the swear jar for that. We can't have people going effing buck wild when Mudang's around. Keep it tame. She's still a child, right? I like the Mudang emojis over there on Kick. Good stuff. Okay. Emiru's statements regarding Mizkif's controlling and toxic behavior. So the complaint, Mizkif says that Emiru's statements regarding Mizkif's controlling and toxic behavior were defamatory. She stated that he was controlling over close and friends when she streamed, and that he would coach and hammer into her. And yet, in his own words, he admits to telling her how to dress, who to speak to, what to speak about, and who to contact. He says, I know I was controlling, and I should have just ended the effing relationship. But I was so confused as a person. Swear jar's filling up. The last 9 months of this relationship, things got extremely toxic. Mizkif admits in his live stream that Emiru's statements regarding his driving habits were true, that he would drive like 150 miles an hour, and one time said, now we're both going to die, like threatening to kill both of us. Yet Mizkif admits, I drive fast literally everywhere. I drive fast all the time. I don't remember the exact speech he got up to, but we were definitely flying. Paragraph 20, Mizkif alleges that Emiru made statements that Mizkif would throw objects at her. Setting aside the fact this is an interpretation of her statements, not an actual quote, Mizkif also admitted to hurting Emiru by throwing objects. He says he threw water bottles or my phone, but that it was only near her, not directly at her, yet admits she got a bruise from it. Yeah, this shit doesn't make sense. Mizkif definitely hit her with some of that if she got a bruise. If he admits she got a bruise, right? Like that doesn't make sense. You can't have it both ways. In order to prevail on a claim of defamation, Mizkif must plausibly plead that Emiru's statements were false, yet he admitted they were true just a few hours later. The case was being dismissed because he fails to provide the entire context, admits to his own damning statements, and would defeat his claims of time. So let's talk about this portion, because we're about to get in the next portion, right? This controversial emotional truth part. This section is good. And these are the same arguments that Asmongold made. And so far, the arguments are good. But the next section was required because essentially she said the word essay. And that's why they had to come in and add this subparagraph B. And that's what gets us there. And that's the only, once again, The only thing I think that Emiru made a mistake on fundamentally was using that term, right? So now we get into the emotional truth portion, right? So let's get into that right now. But so far, same arguments as Asmongold, and by and large, for the vast majority of what Mizkif has said, those lawyers are right. Same as Asmongold's lawyers. The vast majority of what he's arguing is just bullshit. It's complete crap. And that's 99%. But you've got that little, that, or 97%, if you want to say each statement is 1%, right? Whatever, right? 97%. But here's the three. Texas law has long held that even a verifiably false statement is not defamation if the context of the statement reveals the statement was merely a reflection of an opinion. So once again, even if you lie, or rather say something that's false, not necessarily lie, but say something false, if it's your opinion, right, not a statement of fact, then it can be considered non-defamatory. And they quote this case Benson, saying there was a case like this in Benson. In Benson, a daughter made a TikTok video in which she accused her stepfather of sexual assault. So the exact, once again, the exact same verbiage that Emiru used, and accused her mother, a famous wrestler, of knowing about the assault and refusing to do anything to protect her. The mother and stepfather filed suit, alleging the daughter claims constituted defamation because she accused the stepfather of the crime of SA. So once again, this is very much an on-point case. The mother of the crime and the mother crime of tampering with the witness. The daughter was able to take advantage of the Texas Citizen Participation Act, expedited procedures to move to dismiss the defamation claim filed by her mother. Here, Mizkif filed his claim in federal court to avoid the TCPA because the TCPA would give Emiru and other defendants the opportunity to actually address his false claim on the merits and end this quickly. Remember how I told you guys that he filed this in federal court for a reason? Boom, right there. And that's absolutely accurate. That description is very accurate. If he'd filed it in Texas state court, right, she would have that procedural burden, and this would be dealt with a lot quicker, and he would probably lose in an expedited fashion. Nope, W. Mopan. Attorney Lewis in the Corey Richardson's case sounds like Emiru. Yes, we've brought that up. She is a lawyer-roo. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Let's continue here. In Benson, the mother claimed the daughter made several false defamatory statements, saying, including that the mother knew the daughter had been SA'd by the stepfather but did not care, characterized the SA as a mistake, told her daughter that the assault was not the mother's problem, failed to protect the daughter from SA, abandoned her daughter in support of the stepfather, who she knew had SA'd the daughter. The court analyzed the entire context of the video, noting that the daughter expressed her unhappiness with the estrangement between her and her mother. The court held that the entire context showed the daughter's statements were not actionable because she was sharing her personal viewpoint, i.e. her own emotional truth and purported fact. So this whole argument, so I know that Mizkif is crying about the emotional truth argument, but that's coming from a Texas case. So they literally are taking the language from the Texas case and using it here. So the lawyers are doing what's successful, right? They're finding a case that's similar. They're using the language from that case and quoting it. So it's not like Emiru and her lawyers just made up this emotional truth argument that's never been made anywhere ever, right? No, it comes from this case. It's a quote from that case about someone's personal viewpoint, i.e. their opinion, right? Okay. So let me go down here. Here, with the context of the entire 90-minute live stream, it's clear that Emiru was telling her own emotional truth, explaining how their relationship came to an end and struggles Emiru endured during their relationship. The live stream was spontaneous, unedited, unscripted, underscoring that Emiru was not delivering a rehearsed narrative. I did think she was reading, though. I do think she was reading, though. But maybe she just wrote down her own thoughts and notes or something like that. But I could have sworn she was reading. But instead was speaking openly and vulnerably at the moment, her truth as she experienced it. I do think also there was some stuff she was kind of winging, but I do think she was reading at least some of it. Like the daughter in Benson, Emiru's allegedly defamatory statements were either non-actionable statements of opinion or merely opinions masquerading as fact. For example, she discusses at length the pain she felt that her partner, who she cared deeply for, whose approval she craved, repeatedly punished her for success. So I felt like I was stuck in kind of a loop where I felt like I had to constantly perform and like prove my value to not be thrown away. But at the same time, if I ever performed too well, I was going to be punished for it. And it just felt like a very rough situation to be stuck in, because streaming is my hobby and my job. Like, it's a huge part of my life before even, I met him and he became a large creator. I remember thinking all the time how it felt like he hated me, but he still wanted me to be around for his channel and like his thumbnails and everything. These statements are nearly identical to the statements in Benson, the case where the daughter was found to have an opinion, and Emiru expressing her heartfelt emotional journey over several years with an admittedly toxic man. Her story is admirable and telling it. She's stating her truth, not some statement of decisive fact. Here we go. Interestingly, the case directly dealt with the question of whether accusing someone of SA constitutes defamation. There, the daughter used the term SA without explaining exactly what occurred. The court held because Texas Penal Code defines criminal offense of sexual assault, and Guerrero published a statement that Chris had sexually assaulted her without further evidence, the words that they used were reasonably capable of defamatory meaning, that they had committed a crime. So saying, when you say that, a reasonable person could think that you're accusing them of a crime. For purposes of the TCPA, this was sufficient for the father's claims to survive the initial challenge. But Mizkif will certainly focus on Emiru's use of the words SA, as a smart lawyer should, because that's really the only thing he has to hang his hat on. All the rest of his arguments are garbage. I'm pointing out the only thing in there that he's got that even makes sense at all. Bizarrely, this is the one sentence Mr. Rosendo actually quotes in his amended complaint. He started kissing me in the face and I let him do it. And then suddenly he tried to climb on top of me and aggressively shove his hands down my pants, and I screamed. And when I screamed, he jumped off me like a cat. Taking the whole context of the statement into account, as the court is required to do, that is very different from the stepfather. Emiru describes exactly what happened to her, and although she defines it as SA, a reasonable viewer would unquestionably understand that term as her own description of what happened to her. This is the debatable part, right? This is the part where it's an argument they're making. Would a reasonable, regular person watching her stream, when she said the word SA and they listened to the whole thing, would they think it's just a description of what's said, or think it's accusing him of a crime? I'll leave that out there, and I'll leave it against to ponder on that one, right? And I'll read the rest of this. Viewers are not left to guess as to the nature of assault based solely on the term sexual assault, which focuses on the fact that daughter did not actually describe the alleged assault. Emiru's statements are not actionable as defamation because they show her personal viewpoint. The court should dismiss, right? Okay. So let's go to my analysis, my PP here. And then I'll talk a little bit about kind of the rest of this, from a procedural standpoint. Okay. Whip out the PP, right? And hopefully we're not hit with any claims over that. All right. We got right here. Boom. So they focused on that. The key here is, okay, that's how a reasonable person would interpret that statement. Emiru's problem is that she repeated the words 3 times and she used them in the context of other behavior, which could be considered potentially criminal, right? So it's the context of that. People could think, wow, this is a person that there might be criminal behavior, right? The problem is for Mizkif is he's a public figure, and the burden is on Mizkif to prove Emiru said those things with malice. So he's actually got to show that Emiru knew it didn't fit the definition of SA, and she said it anyways. And that's the part where I think at trial, at summary judgment, Mizkif's going to have a real hard time with that, because he's got to prove that Emiru knew the real definition, the legal definition, was trying to say the legal definition and did it anyways, maliciously. She knew that was not SA. She said it knowing it was not SA and did it anyways. if she said it because, well, I didn't know that this was going to imply that it was the colloquial definition. I hear people saying that all the time, and I don't necessarily think that's the criminal. I wasn't saying it in the criminal sense, right? And that's her position, right? When she's deposed, when she's asked that question, she's saying, well, I'm not calling him a criminal, but I was just using that word because it's the colloquial word, right? It's going to be tough for him to prove the actual malice. And that's the problem with defamation cases. That's the problem with defamation cases. The steep evidentiary standard, clear and convincing evidence, not preponderance of the evidence, right? Not like a little bit more than 50-50. He's got to show by clear and convincing evidence, the higher standard, right? You can't put a real percentage on these things, but clear and convincing would be more in like the 70 to 80%, right? It'd be the higher percentile, right? Maybe even 90, but not just like, okay, it's a little bit more likely than not. And that's really, really difficult for them. Really, really difficult. So let me go back. Let me just talk a little bit about Asmongold real quick. So Asmongold never uses the term essay. And like I said, that's the thing that I think just completely absolves him, because he never said any crimes. So he was just reacting, and he was mostly going off Mizkif statements and giving his personal opinion or giving Mizkif advice to clean up his life. So Asmongold, so nothing about the Emiru thing changes anything with Asmongold. So I don't change on my predicted outcome for Asmon based on the Emiru's defense. So in my judgment, when I came to the judgment, I was saying Asmon is still likely to get his dismissal. Asmon's probably going to get his dismissal. But Emiru put herself in a more difficult position based on her use of the word essay. If she didn't use that, she wouldn't be in the same one. And that argument about emotional truth and opinion, it may very well win, especially in the jurisdiction where she is, especially if she gets like a heavy female jury, right? Right? She probably would win at trial, let's say. But that argument might be more appropriate for later in the case. So she might lose her motion to dismiss, but she might prevail at a future date, right? Because the motion to dismiss, once again, it's pretrial, presumes the facts and favors of Mizkif. They might say, okay, well, let's let this go a little bit further. Let's let this go to discovery, right? And let this go on further. So I can see that happening. Now, could she win? It's possible, right? It's possible, but she doesn't have as good of a chance as Asmongold, right? Asmongold definitely smart to not do that. And as a practice, I really haven't seen Asmongold defaming people. I actually think Asmongold understands the law pretty well, and he makes a good attempt to not defame people. So yeah, it's an Austin jury. So put that out there, right? But anyways, Mizkif has a pretty high bar as a public figure to show malice, but I think there's a good chance he could settle with Emiru. It's possible. If Emiru wanted to stop, he could. I don't think he's getting a settlement out of Asmongold. He may have a chance with OTK or Mythic, but I think even those guys can fight him because the contracts allow them to terminate. I'm not saying I haven't seen the contracts that they have between each other. I would love to see those contracts, but I think he's got a poor position against OTK and against Mythic. And those may end up going into arbitration. Asmongold, nothing. But Emiru, okay, let's say she loses her motion to dismiss. Maybe she just wants to pay a settlement with Mizkif to move on. It's possible, but it sounds like Mizkif wants demon time. And it also sounded like Emiru was prepared to take this to the paint and take this to court and expose everything and bring out other information and, go to depositions and have all that stuff come out. So, from a personal standpoint, if Emiru loses, the internet may get more juice, more drama, right? Because you're going to get more things coming out. So the internet probably would prefer if that goes down. But this is kind of my prediction right now, is that Emiru has a chance to lose that motion to dismiss. Warranty void, though, winning with 50 legal mindset memberships.
Oh.
Thank you.
Oh, hell.
Are you guys enjoying the stream today?
Appreciate that, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate all that support. Thank you, Warranty Void. Very based. If you received that, say thank you. Warranty Void saying long time no see, but missed the streams here at 50. Thank you for that. Very, very based. If you like this content, you like what I'm doing here, you like that I always treat it fair, let me know. And we'll make sure we're doing good stuff. We're doing good stuff. We should have a fast facts on this one out very soon as well. But let me point out here, just from a broader standpoint with this trial, I just don't see, given the jury, and I don't know the leanings of the particular judge. I don't think we have a Tectone case sort of situation with this one, but with Texas law and with the overall Mizkif not being a sympathetic figure, I just don't see a situation in which Mizkif gets this overwhelming victory at trial. I still don't. Even pointing that out, even going through the transcript, even looking at that, even looking at the worst thing, and that's the worst thing she said, right? Which I want to be very clear, you should not say. And I will say, from my standpoint, I tell this all the time in all my streams, people should not be accusing other people of crimes, particularly of sex crimes. Should not be calling people PDFs, should not be calling people the R word, right? Saying you're, the grapist, right? We'll put it that way. Should not be saying SA, should not be saying, any other sort of crime. Don't do it. It's stupid. And it's defamation, right? And I've been saying that for a very, very long time. And that's something that Emiru did not have good counsel on. Perhaps she just did it herself. Perhaps she didn't go to a lawyer. Perhaps she didn't do it. But that's her main and chief fault. So that's what I think about that. Let's see. I think it's going to be an interesting one. I'm still going to stay tuned on this. But I have, in terms of this, does this change me to being sympathetic for Mizkif? Does this all of a sudden make me cry for Mizkif? No. Like I said, I brought up this earlier with the Mizkif tears and the Mizkif, crying, saying everyone's calling me bad names, etc. He's been doing that on the internet over the past months pretty consistently, trying to take down and attack pretty much everybody, defaming everybody, calling them names, pretty much opening himself up to lawsuits from other people if they really wanted to sue him over that. So I don't have much love or sympathy lost for Mizkif when he's in a glass house throwing stones at other people, especially with things that those people didn't do or didn't commit or weren't charged with, right? And once again, I think the Chibi thing was absolutely a horrible low blow. Imago Lewis, thank you for the 5 legal mindset memberships. Appreciate it. Yes. All right. So that, guys, is what I have on this today, ladies and gentlemen. I will be covering this as it goes on. As always, once again, I'm honest on my channel. I try to stay based on the channel, and I hope you guys enjoy that. I hope you enjoy that. I will give a fair analysis, even if I think somebody is a punk, even if I think they're a little twat. I'm gonna be real with you guys. Atlantic gifted 10 legal mindset memberships. Thank you so much. Yes. Algo Lewis says, if you see my gift memberships, you're good. Hold on.
Not a sin. I cannot absolve you. Mega based.
For comedic palate cleanser, check out Gucci Marx's generative AI satire Mizkif. You was hurting me so bad. Time to go full demon mode. Muy picante. Isn't Mizkif suing? Hold on. Isn't Mizkif suing Gucci Marx? Did that actually happen? Did that actually happen? Or did somebody else sue Gucci? I think somebody sued Gucci Marx. I have to find out that one. I have to watch it beforehand to make sure it's okay for no demonetization. But how about this? There will be in the next update. I will pull that one up. I will pull that one up for sure. For sure. I promise you. All right, guys. Appreciate you. Stay based. Have a wonderful night. And I'll catch you all in the next one.
You are hoping to see them. You just can't believe what you're seeing. Yes, you're hoping to see them. The truth it is all day, and now you are more than